So welcome, everyone. It's really good to be back with you for the 8th and final session of this 8-week course on the Noble Eightfold Path. It's been a journey I've really enjoyed being together on, and I hope you have also found it helpful, maybe in terms of gaining some insight into this particular teaching and how it fits in with the overall kind of map of the Buddhist teachings of the Dharma. As I said, I'd love to hear from you afterwards or today, just how you're feeling about things, and any evaluation you have, which will be very helpful for us as we do courses going ahead into 2022. I do want to mention that I'm planning on doing, similarly to this year, to do a course in the spring and a course in the fall. This year we did the Four Noble Truths and now the Eightfold Path. And next year, what I'm planning on teaching are the Buddhist heart practices of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, which play a really central role in the teachings and the practices, and the four foundations of mindfulness. I had a chance to kind of highlight those under the mindfulness week, but just a very quick overview. And that would be a much more in-depth look at it over 6 or 7 weeks. So I don't know quite now which order. It may depend on what other people are teaching, whether I do which one I do in the spring and which one in the fall, but I'll keep you posted on that. And so the theme for today is the 8th factor of the Eightfold Path, which is wise concentration, or right concentration. And this is, a very central, very important factor on the path. And it's really about creating, cultivating a mind that is steady, focused, calm, present. The way we go through our day, right? No. So a lot of us are not we're running around and we're not particularly focused. We're maybe trying to focus on 3 or 4 different things at the same time. And this is really the practice of really coming into, focus. Sometimes it's emphasized as, like in terms of concentration, and I'll talk more about this, but it has a kind of connotation of tightness, so like really, really focusing. And it's not really so much that, it's much more of a calm, but it has the focus in it. But being present, but with a calm and balanced kind of an awareness. So that's what we'll be exploring today. We'll be looking at wise concentration. And I'll also be kind of tying up the ends of these 8 factors and how they work together. I mentioned a couple of times, I think, Bhikkhu Bodhi's metaphor of strands of a cable, a cable made up of 8 different strands, and the cable is really strong because of each of the strands is strong, and they're all contributing to the strength of being able to carry the bus or the train or whatever they're carrying, and this is really how these factors of the path work. So I want to talk about that and tie up the ends, as best, at least in a kind of an overview way today. And then we'll have time for questions, sharing at the end. I think I'll take the last part for that. And any final things. So I'll repeat some of the information I shared just a few minutes ago about follow up to the course. What we'll be providing to you. So we'll have the same format as apart from the last part, last couple of parts, we'll have the same format, beginning with a meditation and then having a talk. So we'll begin with the meditation. Before we, it's kind of as an introduction to the meditation and a little bit linked to the last point I was making about tying up ends. I just want to point out that when we practice, as we'll be doing for the next 20 minutes in meditation, and as you might do in your daily meditation or, regular meditation, we think of it as a mindfulness practice, of being present with our experience. And it very much is a mindfulness practice. But it's also really worth noting that there's at least 5 of the factors of the Eightfold Path that are being brought in to the meditation, in different strength, if you like, at different times, but they're all very much part of just a practice of meditation. So let me just give an example. Wise understanding, which is the first, or right view, whichever you can call it, either of those terms. Wise understanding really lets us know, another word for it, wise understanding it really emphasizes why it's important to practice and how meditation can support us in moving towards where we're going on this path, moving towards the end of suffering. So meditation fits within the path, and our understanding, the understanding of karma, the understanding of the Four Noble Truths, helps us understand, this is why it's helpful to meditate, because it will help us to see things, help us to let go, and ultimately move us, down the path towards alleviating and ultimately ending suffering. So our meditation is informed by our right view, wise understanding. It's also informed by our intention. Our intention provides us the direction. It kind of sets us out on, we're meditating in order to let go of clinging, cultivate wholesome states, and ultimately gain insight so that we can free the mind and free the heart. So our intention, we're, in meditating, we're expressing, if you like, an intention that moves in the direction of waking up. So we're informed, so it's informed very much by wise intention. Not so much of a focus on the ethical part of the path, the speech, the action, the livelihood. You could kind of shoehorn a little bit of speech in there of the way we might talk to ourselves in meditation, rather than judging ourselves, being kind. But they're more about how we are in the world, how we're engaging in the world, with others, and, in terms of our actions, our speech, our work. But the other factors, wise effort. What is wise effort? Wise effort, the Buddha says, is these 4 great endeavors to prevent the arising of unskillful states, which we do in meditation. If we see ourselves going into, getting carried away in our thoughts or memory we have of something and getting angry, if we see the possibility of that happening, we can prevent it from happening by, for example, just staying with our breathing, and when the mind does go off, we just come back before it develops into an eruption of anger, let's say, in the mind, or judgment or blame or something like that. So, and then when unskillful states do come up, we can work with them, as we do, with wise effort. We can kind of see, we can ride the waves of difficult emotions and experience and let them come and go. So we can do the first 2 elements of wise effort, and we can also cultivate states that are conducive to well-being. Mindfulness itself is a state. Wise mindfulness, or right mindfulness, is a quality of mind that is conducive to well-being and happiness. in its own right. But as part of wise effort, cultivating wise mindfulness, cultivating compassion towards ourselves, cultivating loving kindness, cultivating patience. I mean, a whole range of different qualities that are skillful qualities that we can be cultivating in meditation. It may be at different ones at different times, but wholesome qualities of heart and mind. So these are all expressions of wise effort in the meditation. And then when those wholesome states do arise, we keep them going. We do what we can to maintain them. We're like the bellows, or is that what they're called? When you blow air on the fire, the bellows. It's an old-fashioned word, I think. But yeah, you kind of blow the embers, to get, to keep alive the fire. And in the same way, we kind of incline the mind to keep going those wholesome states. So wise effort is very much part of our mindfulness practice. Clearly, our meditation practice, clearly mindfulness, I don't need to say a lot about that. It's a moment-to-moment awareness that we're practicing all the time, really, when we're meditating. We're intending to be present. We're resting our attention on the breath or some other focus, and then we're coming back. So all the time, mindfulness is a key part of our meditation. And concentration, the focusing of the mind, whether it's in a spacious way or a more focused way, we're cultivating concentration. We may not be doing a formal, quote, concentration practice, which tends to be, a practice on its own, like a loving kindness practice. It has its own features, but concentration is very much part of the mindfulness practice. Just even when we're just being aware of our breathing, using that as an anchor, we're focusing the mind, we're concentrating the mind, in a wholesome way. So this is just an example, kind of not untangling, but we're kind of disaggregating, separating out these qualities of the Eightfold Path and how they are very much part of our meditation practice. We could do the same with our activities in daily life as well. It'd be an interesting exploration of like, oh, where do I see this quality coming up? Where do I see effort coming up? Where do I see the intention clearly? Hopefully some of the at-home practices over these weeks have been useful in that, of kind of illuminating a little bit some of the, some of these factors of the path. So I just wanted to get to say that, provide that as a little bit of a context before we go into the meditation. So invite you to take a moment or two to get as comfortable as you can be. Sit down. And taking your seat. You might imagine a kind of the image of the Buddha under the tree. Internalizing that sense of dignity, presence, just being as fully here as you can be right now, and making any adjustments in your posture. Inviting the shoulders to relax. You might do just a brief scan through the body, see if there's any area you might be unconsciously holding tension that you might relax a little bit more. It'd be helpful to bring awareness to areas where we often carry tension, hold tension. The face, there's so much energy and activity going on in the face through the eyes and talking through the mouth, reacting to things, smiling, different. So a lot of tension can build up in the facial muscles and around the eyes and the forehead. I invite that area to relax, be at ease. and the shoulders and the back of the neck, where I think particularly in our time with all the time we're on screens and looking at phones and computers, we're leaning forward a lot, and a lot of tension can build up around the neck, back of the neck, and the shoulders and the upper back. You might invite that area to relax. You'd imagine any tension just draining down through the body, down into the ground, into the earth, into the floor. And the chest and belly, the whole kind of the center of our bodies, where we're tightening up, tensing up a lot of the time. We feel it in our viscera, our internal organs, muscles in the stomach easily tighten up if we're busy or stressed out. So just bringing awareness to that area and inviting a relaxing, maybe taking a nice deep in-breath and letting go on the out-breath. You could maybe continue with a few deeper breaths if it's helpful, just to relax, bringing energy into the body and the mind as you breathe in deeply, and relaxing and letting go as you breathe out. Long, slow out breath. You might ask yourself what, if anything, would be helpful right now, just to support me being here in a calm and relaxed and alert way. Maybe inviting a smile might relax the body. Maybe bring a sense, a quality of ease. Putting your hand on your heart might connect you with yourself. Any struggles you might be having, any difficulties. A reflection on gratitude. Maybe just one or two or a few things you feel grateful for. It can be a way of shifting out of the focus we often have on what's wrong or what we're lacking. Just to invite ourselves back to recognizing, remembering what we have to be grateful for. Might be a wish of loving kindness or self-compassion. Might also be a way of connecting with yourself and any difficulties you might be having. Just wishing yourself well. May I be happy. May I be free from harm. May I be peaceful. Whatever might speak to you right now. May I be filled with loving kindness, held in loving kindness. You might invite your attention to whatever is present right now for you in the body and in the heart, in the mind. And what are you aware of right now? Whatever is present, whatever is predominant in your experience right now, can you meet it with kindness, with acceptance? Just making space for whatever is here. You might invite a view or an understanding that nothing that comes up needs to be wrong or different than it is. Let's consciously kind of take on that view that whatever is here, you could say is lawful. It's what's come out of previous causes and conditions. And the way that you meet what's here, what you're aware of, plays a profound role in whether it leads to suffering or whether it doesn't. And if everything can be met with kindness, then nothing really needs to be a problem. Not that it's simple or easy. But if we invite that view, that understanding, whatever is here, can I meet it with acceptance, with kindness? If it's helpful to you, you might use the breath as a focus or an anchor for your awareness. Being bringing kind attention to the experience of breathing in and breathing out. The breath just as it is. There are many different focuses for our attention. Body, sound, something outside of ourselves that we look at, or in Zen, a koan, a paradoxical statement or a question. And what's most important is what's most helpful. What helps me to be here, to be present. And one form of awareness, which we haven't really focused on up to now, is an open awareness, an awareness where there's not a particular object that we're focusing on, but we're bringing awareness to whatever is coming into, kind of onto the screen of awareness, if you like, whatever's coming. And just seeing everything come and go. Can be particularly helpful if the mind is pretty settled, calm, focused. To let go of particular focus of attention and just let the awareness be open. If it's helpful, you could think of the awareness as like a wide open sky, all sorts of things passing through it, but the sky remains open and spacious. In the same way, our mind can be open and spacious, thoughts calm, emotions calm, feelings calm, sensations, impulses, all coming and going. They can just have their moment pass like clouds passing through the sky or birds flying through the sky. If you find yourself lost in a story, pulled into the future or the past, plans, daydreams, memories. If you're using the breath as a focus, you can just come back, rest the awareness on breath, breathing in, breathing out. And if you're resting in an open awareness, just come back to that open awareness again. It's like the attention has gone behind the cloud, as the sun has gone behind the cloud. We got pulled into something. And then when we realize that, we can come back again. Just see that was a kind of a momentary movement of the mind. This is a poem by Derek Walcott, Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here, eat." You will love again the strange. Give wine, give back up to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you have ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. So welcome back into the group setting again, and welcome to anyone who joined us after the beginning of a session tonight. So, as I said, I'd like to talk about wise concentration, and also to kind of do a few concluding remarks about the path and how the different factors fit together. Different factors of the Eightfold Path fit together. So as you know, wise concentration or what right concentration is the last of the 8 factors of the Eightfold Path. I said earlier in the course, probably the first couple of weeks, that these factors are not sequential in a linear kind of way, you know, as though we begin by developing wise understanding, and when we've fully developed wise understanding, then we can move on to wise intention and, you know, cultivate our intentions. It doesn't really work that way. I mean, you know, life isn't like that. You don't separate off your understanding from your intentions, from your actions. They're all kind of very much tied up together. As Bhikkhu Bodhi says, it's more like a spiral. You know, you're kind of more focused on here, and then something here changes, and there's a deepening of understanding. So, for example, if you deepen in one factor, that may have impact on other factors. For example, as we practice mindfulness, as our practice deepens, we may gain important insights and insights into letting go. You know, I think I maybe use the example of, you know, we have a real strong negative feeling towards somebody in our life, maybe somebody at work, you know, a colleague who you feel is kind of mean or judgmental or somehow whatever, some story, whatever the thing in our mind is. And maybe through cultivating compassion, maybe through cultivating wise understanding, we're able to kind of let go. Or forgiveness would be another example. You know, we forgive somebody who's done something, you know, bad to us, betrayed us. Through working with it, you know, that we've gained some insight. And in doing that, through mindfulness, through the practice of mindfulness, we gain some understanding, you know, that maybe some deeper understanding that, you know, it's, if I can let go around this person, well, maybe I can let go around other people. Maybe it gives me some insight into a broader sense in which I can let go. You know, I can let go of a lot of things. You know, there's and so in that, through that practice, we're gaining, you know, we're deepening our view, our understanding as well. That's deepening. So strengthening and deepening in one area can lead to deepening in another. And then that understanding, that view, we bring to other areas of the path, to our speech, to our actions, to our livelihood, to our engagement with other people. So, you know, it's more in this kind of way that the more of a spiral way that the factors of the path work together. At least that's been my experience and my understanding. But even though it's not linear, you know, what you do one and then you do two and then you do three, deepening our practice of the other factors of the path will or does create the conditions for a calm and stable mind that is conducive to seeing things clearly. So there is, you know, there's a sense, an importance, I think, in concentration being at the end, in a kind of culmination or a part of the culmination, because the more we, you know, I've spoken of the more we cultivate, you know, our view and our you know, our understanding and our intentions, and that we see that they're wholesome, and then we bring them into our behavior in life, our speech, our action, our livelihood. Then what it does is that, you know, if we're speaking kindly, we're telling the truth, we're not harming, we're not stealing, we're not, you know, abusing intoxicants and engaging in sexual misconduct and different, you know, behaviors that are unwholesome, then the mind is going to be more calm, more settled. The more we practice awareness, the more we deepen our mindfulness, the more the mind is calm, is settled, is concentrated. And then we're more able, with this mind that's settled, calm, steady, we're more able to see into the deeper truths about life, you know, and some important ones are what are called in Buddhism the three characteristics of existence. You know, in Pali, they're anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Anicca, impermanence; dukkha, suffering or unsatisfactoriness; and anatta, non-self. You know, that there's not a permanent self in any of all of this. You know, in a broader sense, you could say everything is empty of a permanent self. There's nothing has a separate, independent existence. It all comes out of causes and conditions and then changes, you know. So we gain, so with a calm and a steady mind, we're able to gain insight. And so it's, you know, it has its role, if you like, at the, you know, at the end of the Eightfold Path, leading to, you know, leading to letting go and to freedom from suffering. You know, the ending, the complete ending of greed, aversion, and delusion. So concentration is a factor in all of our activities. You know, we need some level of focus to stand up. You know, if I'm going to stand up, I have to in some way kind of focus my mind, and I've got to put my feet down, and then I've got to lean over to, you know, have just in the right place so I can get up. It requires that kind of focus. Or to drive a car, you know, drive a vehicle, you know, I need to be focused, even if my mind is partly on, you know, what am I going to do when I get to the restaurant or whatever. You know, I need to be at least focused enough to be able to not be driving up on the pavement and all of that kind of thing. So concentration comes in almost, you know, every aspect of our life, really. It requires some level of focus or concentration. But what's particular about wise concentration or right concentration as a factor of the Eightfold Path is that we're focusing the mind in the service of seeing clearly and of letting go, in the service of freedom and ending suffering. And if a key to wise concentration is that it needs to be supported by the other elements of the Eightfold Path. You know, wise view won't be wise concentration. I'll give you I'm going to share my screen here. There we go. I can show a few slides. Make some adjustments here. Slideshow. Play from the current slide. Over here. There we go. There we go. So wise concentration, sama samadhi. Sama means highest, best, and samadhi means collectedness. You know, a kind of the mind that's collected, a mind that's gathered. You know, it involves, so wise concentration involves the cultivation of a mind that's, these are some of the words, and many different words we could use around for this samadhi. A mind that's unified. You kind of get the sense of, you know, rather than being all over the place, it's kind of focused on the object, whatever the object is. Unified, focused, collected is another term we might use. Calm as well. So it's not an agitated kind of focus. And it's steady and balanced. You know, so it brings together these different qualities. So free from agitation and stress and worry, fear and anger and all of these negative states. They can't both exist. They can't exist at the same time. The mind can't be filled with fear or anxiety or anger and be focused in terms of wise concentration. It can be focused in a narrow way. Yes, we could be very focused on giving that person a piece of our mind and being angry with them, or being caught up in road rage. There might be a lot of concentration in that narrow sense, but it wouldn't be wise concentration. Wise concentration means this kind of calm, collectedness, steadiness. And the more the mind is collected, focused, steady, the more it's able to see things clearly, let go of clinging, and ultimately realize freedom of the heart, find freedom. Reach the end of the path. And, again, I've said this a few times over the weeks, that little saying or aphorism of Ajahn Chah's, let go a little and you'll experience a little freedom. Let go a lot and you'll experience a lot of freedom. Let go completely and you'll experience complete freedom and peace. Your struggle with the world will be at an end. That, we may not be reaching the end of the ultimate end of suffering, abandoning clinging completely. But even when we let go a little, we'll experience a little freedom. It's kind of, if you like, it's a microcosm that points to the larger possibilities of ending suffering completely. And you could say that, the macrocosm is of the end of suffering, that complete end of suffering, the letting go, the kind of full awakening is really, it's really mirrored, if you like, in the microcosm, in the letting go, where we forgive somebody, for example. In that, we can see, at least in seed form, how we might let go completely. That's, it's become very clear to me over years of practice that just really the truth of Ajahn Chah's, let go a little, let go a lot, that I do see in the little letting go the seeds of the much larger letting go, or at least the potential for the much larger letting go. And I think that's really important, because that's going to be kind of part of the juice, the energy that will keep us going on the path, that it's not just an isolated thing that doesn't really mean anything. It actually has, a coherence, it has a logic, it has a direction. It's actually moving us towards much greater freedom in our lives. If we can see that, seeing it is the understanding part of, like, oh yeah, I see, when I forgave that person, I was able to let go of my anger and my hate, or my, all of this. Oh, and this, why couldn't I do this with this other person as well? Why couldn't I do it with the world? Why can't I love everybody? I mean, that may not be the easiest thing, from this moment, but it points to that larger letting go that's possible. This is from Bhikkhu Bodhi. The two salient features of a concentrated mind are unbroken attentiveness to an object and the consequent tranquility of the mental functions, qualities which distinguish it from the unconcentrated mind. So the unconcentrated mind will not have, obviously, the attentiveness will be all over the place and it won't be calm. So a concentrated mind, a wisely concentrated mind, will have that focus, but it'll also have that tranquility, that calm, that is really conducive to seeing clearly, to being a factor of the Eightfold Path, rather than just worldly kinds of concentration or focus. We can see examples, many examples of very, very strong concentration, but they don't have any real connection with freedom of the heart. We could think of a sharpshooter, a sniper, has to be really, really concentrated, but the person's heart might be filled with hatred or delusion. Somebody might be really, really focused, playing a game of chess, or another kind of game, but it doesn't have the quality of it may be very focused, may be very unagitated, but it doesn't have the quality. It isn't supported by, by qualities of kind of, it's pretty neutral. It could be somebody could be very, kind and compassionate in that state, but in itself, there's nothing about that focused mind that moves it in that direction. We really need these other qualities as well to support wise concentration. So this is from the Buddha, from the suttas, the discourses of the Buddha, the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle-length discourses. It says, the Buddha asks, what bhikkhus means monks, but it applies to, to practitioners. What practitioners is noble concentration with its support and its requisites? Its supports and its requisites are the things that follow on from that here, support right view, etc. With that is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness. What is it? The answer, he says, unification of mind equipped with these 7 factors is called noble right concentration with its supports and its requisites. So wise concentration is the mind that's unified, that's gathered, that's collected, and that is supported by these 7 other factors. These other factors have to be present. Now, they may not be 100% present, all of them, but through practicing, we develop further and further to, if you like, to perfect our concentration. I don't know if perfect is the best word, but to deepen our wise concentration. Until it's fully developed, then it's still very much a work in progress. So unification of the mind, supported by wise effort, speech, intention, livelihood, understanding, etc. This is from Thanissaro Bhikkhu, who's another a very renowned and respected, Theravadan monastic monk, has a center out in California, and has done a lot of translation of the Buddha's teachings. He says he's actually one of Rob Berbea's main teachers, one of the 2 main teachers, I think. He's known as Tan Jeff because his original name was Jeff, and Thanissaro, if I recall, it means the deathless, and Bhikkhu is a monk, as I said. So Thanissaro Bhikkhu, he says, remember that concentration, as the Buddha said, is like food. So feed your mind well, because you need this nourishment to help you stick with the practice as a whole. You need the nourishment of wise concentration. Your ability to tap into a sense of well-being inside is what makes it easier to follow the precepts, to follow the don't steal, don't kill, don't harm, and engage in misconduct and abuse intoxicants, etc. Makes it easier to follow the precepts, easier to pull yourself out of sensual attachment. So when you do get caught up in anger or hatred or craving, you can come out of it more easily. Easier to do whatever is required. I mentioned Rob Berbea as a teacher I've been very influenced by in the last few years, who died last year. Actually, was very young. He was in his mid-50s, had cancer, but fortunately has many hundreds of his talks are available. And as I mentioned, Tanasaru Bhikkhu was his teacher. And there's a term that Rob uses that I, that resonates a lot with me. And that he talks about developing a reservoir of inner well-being, a reservoir of inner well-being. And I like that metaphor. It's like being able, when you're thirsty, to go drink from the reservoir, or if you need to cool down, you have that, cool water to bathe in. That if you have experienced deep states of calm, of collectedness, of well-being, the mind is much more able to go to that as a resource when things are really, when the going gets tough, as it were. If you haven't had experiences of deep well-being, particularly in meditation, then much easier to get kind of swept up in things and really think that, oh, this current state is, is going to last forever, or it's, I'm not going to be able to deal with this because it's just too much. If we've really settled into these states of calm and well-being, it's like another metaphor, more worldly, would be we've got a bank account that we can go to, in times of need, that will support us, will, help us pay our bills, whatever. I think the reservoir of well-being is a better a metaphor I like, but it's the same sense, really, that we have a place to go to kind of get that replenishment particularly in difficult times. And I think this is really, it's really important in our practice. So here's what a couple more things about wise concentration. Concentration in English, how it's generally used, I think has, emphasizes the focusedness, of the mind. And often, a lot of the time in Buddhist meditation, this quality of the path, this factor of the path, wise concentration, the emphasis is very strongly on the focus part of it. Can I stay really focused on my breath for an hour or for 3 hours or whatever? However, as I mentioned briefly before, the Pali word samadhi has a much broader meaning, and the focused quality is only really a limited part of it. And if you over-focus on overemphasize the focusing part, then you can get very much caught in, you might say, over-efforting, and it's actually unproductive. And I look back on an experience I had doing a longish retreat. I was on a 6-week retreat up at Berry, Massachusetts. They do a 3-month retreat, and I could only do half of it. So I did a 6 weeks of the 12. And, my mind was getting very calm and settled. And I wanted to get concentrated, and I wanted my mind to deepen into, the states of well-being, of real calm. But as I look back on it, I really recognized strongly that I over-focused on the focusing. I stay with my breath without going off into thought for an hour, of meditation, thinking that was kind of where, would be a good direction to go in. And it actually, after a while, I could actually stay, the mind was becoming very, very concentrated, but it was energetically, it wasn't a calm place. It wasn't balanced as I look back on it. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was actually an unskillful way of practicing. And I think I'd been influenced a lot by, a lot of the reading and some of the teachings, that really emphasize this focusing, without enough emphasis on the calming part, the really calming part. And both Tanasaru Bhikkhu, who we just quoted from, and Rob Babea, who I was just speaking about, really emphasize, they kind of move it very much in the other direction, giving more of an emphasis to the calm and the settledness than the focus. Obviously, there needs to be some focus. And this quote from Gil Fronsdal, I think, is a really helpful one. It kind of, talks about what I'm saying here. He says, it can be useful to assume that only 25% of developing concentration is the intentional effort to stay present and focused. He said another 25% of the practice is an attitude of equanimity and receptivity. And a full 50% of concentration practice consists of letting go and relaxing. Now, the numbers, are just a kind of rule of thumb, not that nothing sacrosanct about 25%. It could be 20, it could be 15, it could be 30. But just that emphasis, I think, is a good one. It's like, give the emphasis to the calming, to the settledness, and then the focus will tend to follow from that, rather than what has often been emphasized and what I did in that retreat, for a kind of good period of time, was just this focus, which wasn't balanced. It didn't have the kind of balance that Gil is talking about here. And so there wasn't really a going to a deeper place. There was a focus place, but what does focus in itself mean? On its own, it doesn't really mean a lot. It won't get you to awakening. It won't even be a good jumping off point for awakening, because it won't have these other qualities of calm there. It won't have the balance there. It'll be overemphasizing the one factor at the expense of the other factors. I hope this comes across. I mean, what I'm trying to get across, the importance of the balance here, and kind of where this practice, where wise concentration can lead to. It doesn't have to, but it can lead to, is as concentration deepens and the calm and really the calm and the settledness deepens, it can lead us into states of deep meditative absorption, which are known in the Pali language, the first language of the Buddha's teachings, as jhanas. Jhana is connected to the word for meditation, which is dhyana, Dhyana. So it's kind of a cognate of that. So these are jhanas, meditative absorptions. These are deep states of well-being and non-sensual happiness that develop progressively through these 4 material states of absorption and 4 immaterial states of absorption. The Buddha in the discourses mentions these states, the jhanas, very, very regularly. And what that indicates is that developing these deep meditative absorptions was a very key part of his teachings and the practices of, particularly I think of the monastics. These aren't practices typically for the householders. And I don't think the Buddha really gave these teachings to, because he kind of gave the teachings to, depending on the audience he was talking to. If there were people that very new, he'd give much simpler teachings. If there were very, very well, long practiced, experienced monastics, normally he would give the deeper teachings. And these are very much, these states tend to develop, I mean, they develop through periods of meditation, typically. I don't want to say absolutely in any way here. I'm not saying these can't arise in other situations, but they will typically arise through extended meditation practice over time, where you're having the opportunity to sit for, maybe, some number of weeks, at least a number of days, where you give real attention to the practice of right concentration, or wise concentration. And these states of absorption follow in a sequential way. I mean, they don't, it's not the second one can't happen before the first. It can, but there's a sequence to them where they begin with what are called 4 material states. Rupa means body. You feel them in the body, in the senses. States of absorption, rupa jhanas, and they're characterized by the beginning by what's called in the Pali language piti, and this can be, it can take many different forms, but it's physically felt in the body and in the mind, in the being of it. It can be tingling, it can be pulsing, and it can pervade the whole body or part of the body. And these states are deeply pleasant states. The certainly rapture. I mean, they have a kind of a, can have certainly a bubbly quality. And what they do is they move through in sequence through increasing, what's the word I'm looking for? Increasing subtlety. Yes, subtlety is the word I'm looking for. Increasing subtlety. Rapture is kind of effervescent, and it can often be really, felt in the whole body and the whole being. But as it calms, as the mind calms and settles more, it will settle more into the quality of happiness. And as that, the second jhana, and then that becomes a more subtle peace and happiness. And then ultimately, even a deeper peace of equanimity. And these, you could practice for days or weeks on one of these. And when they're taught, and not everybody, teaches these absorptions, but when they're taught, they're normally taught, focusing, encouraging the practitioner to really stay and get to know each of these states of absorption, the first, the second, the third, the fourth jhana. And then they go into ever deeper states of subtlety, what are called the 4 immaterial states of absorption. Arupa means non-bodily absorptions. And these are states of one. The first is the infinite space of just experiencing infinite space, and then moving even more subtly into infinite consciousness, the experience of that. And then the base of nothingness, and then to a state of the base of neither perception nor non-perception. I mean, deep states that are of extraordinary depth of, as I said, subtlety, and of calmness and settledness, of wise concentration. I don't want to do anything more here, certainly because this is just one little piece of a much larger kind of matrix. But I want to name these. And what I've done in the resources for this week is I've given about 8. If anyone was interested in exploring these further, these are about 8 books, including one by Rob Berbea, his book Seeing That Frees, another by Lee Brasington, who's a really respected teacher of the jhanas, of the absorptions. Shaila Catherine, I included some of her talks over these weeks, and a few other teachers, Guy Armstrong, who teaches out at Spirit Rock. But if you wanted to explore these more, typically it will be on, week-long, 10-day or even longer retreats. But this is what the Buddha, what wise concentration, typically leads or points to, if not necessarily leads to, it can lead to. And it's important to say as well that you don't have to develop these states in order to let go of clinging and to find the end of suffering, to experience the end of suffering. Some people, go. Let me say another thing before I go on to say that. Why these can be helpful is that as the mind becomes really, really settled, and so that there's very, very little and increasingly little, in agitation of any kind of thought or anything that disturbing the mind is so calm, so settled. That is a very, very conducive state to be able to examine, come out of these deep states, and to, with the mind still calm and settled, to explore any aspect of any phenomena and to see the truth about, the three characteristics of existence, the emptiness of all phenomena, and to penetrate the depths of understanding that the Buddha was pointing to in the Noble Eightfold Path. That this deepening these states is a way, is an extraordinarily beneficial platform from which to develop insight. It's the seeing that frees, as the book from Rob Berbea. It's the insight that matters. It doesn't matter in itself that the mind is concentrated. The concentrated mind has to be brought into, examination of phenomena in order for insight to arise, insight to unfold, and for us to let go completely of craving, of greed, of all of the afflictive states of mind. That letting go comes through insight, through clarity, through deep seeing. And these states are very, very beneficial platforms, if you like, to explore, to gain insight, to see clearly and to let go. And you don't have to go through this route. You can have some relative state of calm that can be enough, of concentration that can be enough, to let go completely. So people have become what are called arahants. That's somebody who has reached the final stage of awakening without developing these states of absorption. So I hope I've been able to capture that balance, that the value of them, but they're not, absolutes. They're not sine qua nons, as it were, sine qua nons. So let me pause here, and I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just tie up some ends. I'll stop sharing my screen, come back. I hope that has been at least an overview. I mean, what I've covered here could itself be, be covered in 8 weeks or much longer, that we could explore, these absorptions. We could explore, different aspects of right wise concentration. But I wanted to kind of give at least a little bit of a roadmap of this and how it fits into the Eightfold Path as a whole, and how it fits into how it relates to awakening, how it awakes to how it relates to freedom from suffering. So the last question I want to ask, and in this last 5 minutes or so of the talk, is how do the 8 factors of the path work together in the realization of freedom? This coming back to that question of, you know, the Bhikkhu Bodhi's metaphor of the what do you call it? the coil, what was the name? It's the whatever that word is that I've forgotten, but they all I do. Somebody, a braid is good. There's many different ones. Cable, yeah, thread, you know, the coils of a cable. You get the idea anyway. We need all of them working together. So I just want to run through them again and just kind of the role they play. So the wise understanding, coming back again to the beginning, is a view or a way of seeing that is rooted in an understanding of two kinds of understanding. One is that we're the owners of our intentions and our actions. We're the owners of our karma, that if we sow hatred, then what will come from that is, you know, negative outcomes. You know, hatred will come out of that. If we sow kindness and compassion, what will come out of that will be beneficial qualities. The Buddha says hatred never ended with hatred, only through love is hatred ended. This is the law, ancient and eternal. So that's the first, that's called mundane right view. And superior right view, or super mundane right view, is seeing experience through the Four Noble Truths, seeing suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the path to the end of suffering. And that a way of seeing that is grounded in the Four Noble Truths. You know, we suffer when we cling, when we hold on, we find freedom when we let go. You know, with a simple statement, if you like, a shorthand for the Four Noble Truths. A way of understanding grounded in the Four Noble Truths will move us forward towards freedom, and will also condition and guide the other factors of the path. So our understanding will impact and condition really our speech, our action, our livelihood, our effort, because it's being all of those are operating under the guide, as it were, of this wise understanding. And then wise intention, the second factor, has to be grounded. Naturally, it would have to be grounded in wise understanding. You know, if our intentions were contrary to our understanding, there'd be something fundamentally problematical, you know, kind of schizophrenic in what we were intending. You know, it wouldn't be wise intention. Maybe that's the simplest way of saying it. So wise intention has to be grounded in that view, and it will incline our mind and our actions towards letting go of clinging. So our intentions coming out of what right view will be to let go of clinging and to cultivate compassion and loving kindness, to be kind to ourselves, to others. As I've said before, that our intentions are the bridge between our understanding and our actions. You know, you have the understanding, and the intentions will lead us towards our actions. And so our actions and their consequences will be conditioned by our intentions. So our intentions are moving us forward, just as our view, our understanding is, towards where we're wanting to go. Our intentions of letting go will help open our hearts, will help us let go of clinging, will help us cultivate helpful states, and will move us forward towards letting go, towards freedom. And so, guided by wise understanding and wise intention, our speech, our action, our livelihood, those 3 ethical components of our path, of the path, will be directed towards, if they're informed by wise understanding and wise intention, our speech, our action, and livelihood will move us in the direction of not killing, not stealing, not clouding the mind with intoxicants, not lying, not speaking harshly. Naturally, those move forward as well. Our speech, our action, and livelihood will be in alignment with the Dharma, with the truth. That will be a natural flowing from wise understanding, wise intention, moving us kind of inexorably forward towards letting go, towards the end of suffering. And then the elements of the path, the ethical, the training of the mind elements, effort, mindfulness, and concentration, beginning with energy. Our energy, which manifests in wise effort, will be directed towards cultivating skillful qualities, cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, the Brahma Viharas, cultivating the awakening factors, the 7 awakening factors that I spoke about somewhat briefly a couple of weeks ago. And there'll also be, our energy will be directed towards abandoning the hindrances, abandoning greed and aversion and sloth and torpor and restlessness and worry and doubt and other unskillful qualities. So our effort will move us forward to, broadly stated, to cultivate the good and abandon the unskillful. Abandon unskillful qualities and cultivate the good, cultivate the beneficial. And the Buddha said, in a lovely way he said it, he said, I wouldn't ask if I didn't think you could cultivate the good, I wouldn't ask you to do it. I wouldn't tell you to do it. But because, if it wasn't helpful to you, I wouldn't tell you to cultivate the good. But because it leads to well-being, because it leads to happiness, because I encourage you, teach you to cultivate the good, and similarly to abandon the unskillful states of mind. So our energy likewise moves us down the path. Wise mindfulness is really, to use the cliche, where the rubber meets the road. It's where we experience head on, the choice. We in any situation, we could go this way or that way. Our choices can lead us towards freedom, or they can lead us towards suffering. So it's with mindfulness, we can see, oh, there's clinging here. Can I let go here? Or can I cultivate a state that will move me towards greater happiness and well-being? So our mindfulness is that moment-to-moment awareness that helps moves us towards freedom when we cultivate it skillfully, wisely. And then, as we've been saying today, this evening, wise concentration helps us train the mind so it becomes steady, calm, balanced, malleable, and able to see things clearly, see them with insight. So this kind of is just a very, very brief kind of picture of how these all move together. They move and support each other in guiding us, leading us towards letting go, towards the end of suffering. This afternoon, as I was thinking about this, I made my own image, and I don't know how helpful it is, but I thought of it in terms of the image of, instead of a path, going down a river. Let's say going down a river on a boat that you're rowing down the river. So in my image, there's a boat going down the river. Let's say it's the Amazon River. It's not one that we know. It's not a little stream next to our house. It's some, maybe there's some crocodiles there and some things we don't know about. So scary things might be there as well. So the boat going down the river, our understanding we have to have an understanding of where are we going and why are we going there and what do we want to go there for? Oh, we want to go to the town of this town or this village, 200 kilometers down the river. Okay, so and what we want to, how we're going to go there? Well, we're going to use this sailboat to go down, not sailboat, but rowboat to go down the river. So we have the understanding that provides the framework that moves us forward. Our intention is really our direction and how we're moving forward. Where our intention is we're going to go to the west for 10 miles and then we're going to turn where the river bends, and how we're moving forward and how we're wanting to make our way down the river. The speech, the action, and the livelihood. I think for those to be there, we'd have to have some other people on the boat with us. We're all rowing together, and our speech and our action and livelihood would help us kind of move together down, because those are mainly about how we are in the world. But the effort will be is like the fuel that we're using. Maybe we have an electric motor for to save not CO2, so that we're not polluting the environment, moving us down the river. Or maybe it's the energy of our rowing the boat with our oars. That is what we're using to kind of move us down the river, our effort. And our mindfulness is our awareness of what we need to do. We need to be closer to the center of the river to steer clear of crocodiles or alligators or whatever they have on the Amazon or whatever. So that we have to be aware. We have to be, paying attention. We have to know when to stop, when to rest, when to increase our pace. And our concentration will be the focus that will move us forward in the right direction. And if there's a crew working with us, all of us working together to move us in that direction. So all of these elements have their role to play, and they all support each other if we want to get to where we're wanting to go to, that village at the end of the path. So that metaphor or that image and that little bit to tie up the ends, which was a bit more than 5 minutes, apologies, is where we'll finish the talk for this evening. And what I would love to do in the final time we have is for you, if you'd like to share any questions that come up for you. And if we don't have time to deal with them today, I'm happy to follow up with you afterwards. Make sure I have your email to do that. Diane says it's best to not to concentrate with brute mental force. Yeah, that was my learning on retreat. Peggy has a question from earlier. How I've appreciated everything in the course. How long will we have access to the website? I feel that I could listen to all the sessions again, and there's so much more material I didn't get into. I think the materials from the Four Noble Truths course is available now, and I think this will continue to be available. Glenn may want to jump in and now or at the end to say anything more specific about that, but they'll be around. Who knows how long the internet will be around for? Who knows how long civilization will be around for? So can't promise forever, but don't worry about having access to them. I think over the next year or whatever. So hopefully that would be encouraging. Yeah, and please, if you thank you, Lauren. Hungry fans out here. Very good. Gratitude from Wendy for the teachings. Yeah, anyone, and feel free if anyone would like to just raise your hand and raise a question. But let's see if there are any questions, anything people would like to raise, and if it doesn't have to be questions, it could be just you know, how you're feeling about things or anything. Hope that don't feel don't be shy. Leslie says our group plans to meet again this week, and hopefully, I mean, maybe some groups may choose to continue after this is over. Brianna says, I feel like this is my first pass at a lot of great information I can come back to and deepen my understanding and insight into. Yeah, I mean, that would be what I would emphasize, because this is such a, in a way, you know, what we've covered is really like a kind of a roadmap of a big part of the Dharma. You know, it's not the whole of it, but it's a pretty central part of it, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. And there's so much depth in it that, you know, you could take any one of these elements and spend a number of weeks, you know, or as long as you wanted to on them, and you wouldn't plumb the depths of them, because there's you know, there's a huge amount of wisdom in all of these. So I think, yeah, my hope would be that this has provided, you know, something of an overview. It's like sometimes, you know, having, I'm trying to think of the metaphor, but having, you know, a skeleton, you know, I mean, maybe it's not a skeleton, maybe it's a way of hanging things where they, you know, you can kind of, okay, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. And you have a, yeah, a scaffolding. I think scaffolding is the word I was looking for. I think it's andamiaje in Spanish, I like that word. But scaffolding, where, you know, these elements, you can kind of see, oh yeah, this goes with this in this way. And I think with the teachings of the Buddha, it's such an extraordinary roadmap of consciousness. And you know, it's so deep and broad and nuanced that it really helps to have, you know, ways to hang the pieces together on and see how they, you know, how they fit together. And that's really what I think mainly my hope would be, that it would provide some of like something like a scaffolding, and also some encouragement to you to, you know, to go further into any of the areas that you find, you know, you think you feel are really juicy. You know, it might be like we've been speaking about today, it might be wise concentration. It may be that in your own practice that you've had certain experiences that you kind of, well, what's that? How does that fit in with the teachings and whatever the practice is that you'd like to go further into? Or it may be, you know, practices like the awakening factors, you know, that I spoke briefly about a couple of weeks ago, or the heart practices of the Brahma Viharas. So as an encouragement in that way to do that, I hope that will be the case. Yeah, that's what Robert is saying here as well. I think all seem so interrelated and dependent in some ways on each other. I think that's really, really accurate. Peggy says, could study this for lifetimes. Yeah, we need at least a number of lifetimes, I think, to really to really go into depth with these. So let me just say a few things. We will be following up in the coming days with information on the slides, the resources. I think the question that I think Peggy asked, or someone asked earlier about the access to the materials, I tried to cover. We'll also include an evaluation, which I really invite you to share any thoughts you have, any perceptions. What could work better. Um, what did you think worked well? And to be honest, and be say what you feel, because the more we learn from the experience, the more helpful these courses can be in the future. So that's kind of my main aspiration, is um, not so much praise or blame, but more, is it, what can we do to make things more helpful, as helpful as they can be? And hope that you will follow up with that. So let's finish with a minute of meditation. Just maybe it could be 2 minutes, but you could close your eyes, let your attention come inward, and just check in with yourself, where you are right now. What are you aware of? And just meeting and holding whatever's here for you right now with acceptance and with kindness. You might take a moment to appreciate your own effort in coming to the classes, to doing whatever you've been able to do in terms of your meditation, in terms of meeting in the group, in terms of listening to talks or readings, however that's been, to appreciate whatever you've been able to do, whatever you've been able to gain or understand through these weeks of teachings and practices. And maybe take a moment to appreciate everyone else who's here, who's been part of this course over these 8 weeks. How it would have been a very different experience if you were to do this on your own. You could do something similar, but there's something very powerful about practicing together and working together and studying together and sharing experiences. So take a moment, if you will, if you wish to just appreciate everyone else, the people, if you were in a group outside of the classes, appreciating them, appreciating the full group, the way everybody supported everyone else through showing up, through practicing together, sharing. You might just reflect for a moment on any intention that you could leave here, you might leave here with. Any intention that you might have. It might be an intention connected with your practice, to practice regularly, or intention related to some aspect of the course, or deepening your understanding of the teachings. Or it might be just an intention about how you want to be in the world, to be more present or more kind or passionate or joyful, whatever it might be. Is there some way that you want to kind of take the energy that you've developed over these weeks, bring it into your practice, bring it into your life over the time ahead? finish with the words of David White. Enough, enough, these few words are enough. If not these words, this breath. If not this breath, this sitting here, this opening to the life we have refused again and again, until now. Until now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all your effort, your practice over these weeks, and hope we have a chance to meet again, either in this way or in person in the period ahead. I wish you great fruit in your practice and in your life, and I hope hope you can join us for the courses in 2022, and join us on Sundays at 10:30 for our regular class, 10:30 Eastern, if you feel able to do that, or whenever. Check out the IMCW website. And I don't want to finish without a deep bow of appreciation to Glenn for his extraordinary work in helping make this happen as smoothly and as well as it's been able to go. Much has been thanks to Glenn and his extraordinary managing skills, and so I just want to appreciate him and appreciate you all, and see you down the Dharma path, or the Dharma River if you prefer. Be well.